Spoiler warning, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a cinematic roller coaster ride with wild visuals and a core plot tying it all together. I think even seeing a trailer isn't a good idea because a key part of enjoying this movie, at least for me, was in how it smoothly flowed from one surprising moment to another. So while I do think this is a good movie, please note that it's also a movie which I think is best seen fresh. If you have seen it or still want it spoiled, then you're about to see my more detailed thoughts on it. Warning over, onto the review. Evelyn isn't the stereotypical lead in an action flick. She's not young, glammed up in spandex, born with a superpower, toting firepower, or guaranteed to save anything or anyone. Instead, she genuinely seems like a person who you could walk by in real life. She's got a low income, she's an immigrant, middle-aged, female, Chinese American who runs a laundromat with her husband. She's a different sort of hero, and I really enjoyed seeing her. Plain Jane is a trope, sure, but it's not one that I often see done as well as in Evelyn's case. It's not just her background either. It's also how the actress is shown. All too often, characters don't seem real in movies. They get Hollywoodized. I notice this the most with other women because even in dire circumstances, women often still have shaved legs and makeup. Doesn't matter if it's the apocalypse. In contrast with the norm, Evelyn stands out because she really does come across as just an average woman, living her day-to-day life as best she can. She looks like someone who hopes she can get through the week without dealing with more BS. And that's how she acts, too. I like this because, frankly, for most people, being an adult and just getting through life is hard. Dealing with the daily grind, marriage dynamics, kids growing up, it's all got a lot of ups and downs. It wears people down, but not in some dramatic way, just bit by bit, piece by piece, day after day. It's a realistic depiction of a woman who's just kind of had enough. She's different by the end of the story, of course, but this character growth feels earned. I feel like that's not usually the case with heroes on the screen. They're sort of born heroes. Evelyn doesn't come across that way, and I like that. Her background comes up often, too. Her bluntly telling her daughter she looks fat, meaning it as a sign of love, is culturally Chinese.
You have to try and eat healthier. You are getting fat.
妈，我高中有个同学叫李真，跟我一起考上了明德。她明天过生日，我呢就想做一个又好吃又不发胖的蛋糕送给她。噔噔，哇，杉菜，做的有点丑，别介意啊。
我很喜欢，你知道吗？这是第一次有人亲手为我做生日蛋糕。
我又没有钱买贵重的礼物，小小心意啦。不过她吃了不会发胖哦。哇。
Her fussing over her daughter's girlfriend in a similar way, later on, conveys the same loving meaning. And she's also taking care of one of her elderly parents. I enjoyed seeing all of that because I like seeing characters who feel genuine in movies, and this further added to the realism of Evelyn's character. She seemed like her past mattered, which is essential for good character building, but I've seen many films which miss that basic concept. Her age and sex also influence her a lot too. She's a middle-aged woman with broken dreams, but like most real people, she plows forward with her obligations no matter what. Because what else can she do? Starve? Mope? No time for that. She wishes her husband was more manly, her daughter more straight, herself more successful, and when she should face the truth, she lies to cover it up because it's falling short of her desires.
他是我的
好朋友，老友嚟㗎。
Mom.
As a result, she not only loses sight of the bigger pictures in her life, who her husband and daughter are as individuals, as well as the quality of her relationships with them, but also loses sight of herself, too. She's not only blind to her own flaws, but also to her own strengths. I enjoyed watching Evelyn grow as a person and coming to understand both herself and her loved ones better. Her character arc basically follows Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, but that's a classically used formula for good reason. It works well when it's done well, and this movie does do it well. Side characters grow too, and watching them grow was also interesting. The dynamics between the characters were great too. The husband-wife relationship was interesting. Waymond was underestimated by Evelyn, but why was clever? He was her equal in capability. In other words, if Evelyn was inept in a universe, then so was Waymond. They mirrored each other and kept each other in balance, all the way up to the end of the film. It was also when she understood his strengths that she came to understand her own. I thought all of that was rather poetic. I liked the way they played off of each other's strengths and weaknesses and found it beautiful because they were different but equal human beings who grew together as they changed. When you get down to it, I think that's the core of what romance and marriage should be, balancing each other out and growing together as people. It's not about one period of time, and it's not static. Few movies capture that sense of enduring love well. The daughter-mother relationship was interesting as well. Seeing Joy seek out a version of her mother who could understand her when she was betrayed by and lost her original mother played out in a poignant yet sweet way. Seeing Evelyn come to accept her daughter through healthy communication and kindness was also beautiful. Weird the way the movie showed it, but beautiful. Because the way that Evelyn came to change her views showed a sense of interconnected humanity. I often see movies take a swing at that concept, but fail to connect with it in the same way. The film also does a good job at displaying chaos. A lot of it is visual and blatant, but other bits are less so. For example, there's a point where Wayman casually says song lyrics.
Your clothes never wear as well the next day. Your hair never falls in quite the same way.
Unless you already knew the song, you might not catch that chaotic coincidence between the movie's universe and our own. How it got me thinking. I don't think everything needs to be blatant in a story. When the groundwork's been laid well enough to fill in the blanks and not feel like logical leaps to fill them are reaching, then I feel like that's just a part of storytelling. So when some things are left out which I can guess at, then I think that's fine. On the good side, when it comes to unexplained bits that I can guess why Jobu is fine with her OG father dying. I think why is because he wasn't effective in the one way Wayman was best at, kindness, because Wayman mirrored Evelyn. The best way I can think to describe it is through a D&D reference. It's as if that Evelyn had an intelligence of legendary proportions, but no wisdom. I think that Evelyn had good intentions. I don't think she was necessarily evil, but I think those good intentions classically did the road to hell trope. She was trying to help her daughter reach her maximum potential, but while her intentions and capability were unequaled by other Evelyns, her execution was terrible due to low empathy. She thought she could solve everything and couldn't. In fact, she actually made things the worst they could be by pushing her daughter past her limits and then, eventually, being blind to her own limits as well. On balance, Wayman should still be kinder than that Evelyn. That's who he was, a kind man. It's possible that maybe he was even the most kind Wayman that existed, but that doesn't mean he'd be able to solve problems any better than that Evelyn could. If he were truly perfect in how he behaved, truly effective when she wasn't, then they wouldn't be balanced. They're equals, after all. The audience gets to see this a few times, such as when Evelyn's successful on her own without Wayman, and he's successful on his own without her. So when Evelyn's blind and not being able to fix everything, then I think Wayman needs to be the same in that blindness. They have different approaches, but they meet in the same place in each universe. Meaning, if Evelyn was blind until it was too late, then he'd need to be blind about other things until it was too late as well. Another sign of this arrogance in Jobu's parents is how both that Wayman and that Evelyn thought that they were from the Alpha universe, the one true universe, the first universe, which everything else depends on. This is because the whole theme of the movie was that everything is everywhere all at once. No one's dominant, no one's alpha. As Jobu said, she was Joy. Jobu and Joy seem to share a soul. All joy is joy. If she's correct about that point, and she should be, given all that she's witnessed and can do, that meant seeing yourself as the one and only in a single reality was false. Because in this tale, there are infinite versions of you that are, nonetheless, you. Since the themes and title of the movie itself back her up, I feel decently confident in my perception of the plot here. Plus, as is often for me, video games seem to have a great analogy here. You can play a video game character over and over again and have multiple saves, yet Mario is still Mario. Link is still Link. It doesn't matter if one Mario skipped ahead with a warp whistle or if one Link died. They're all links on a single chain, or Marios. You can't say one Link or one Mario is the truest version, not even the very first one you play, and be taken seriously by other players all over the world. After all, if someone were going to have the one true Mario or the one true Link or one true whatever, then the testers who made the game first had the real one and it likely died quickly. It's also funny to me that the Alpha universe thought Alpha meant best and truest because Alpha isn't the finished product. An Alpha game is way worse, way buggier than Beta. Both of those are generally lame compared to the polished intended version that's released too. Plus, usually it's not perfect on release. Patches also change the game. So which version's the realest? The debate seems endlessly subjective because it's all part of a process, all part of the same game. No one version can really be called the true version because while the alpha version isn't finished, the final version couldn't exist without its starting point. I think this was probably the filmmaker's idea because it fits so perfectly. I don't know if it was subconscious or intentional though, but the way Jobu's able to interface with the universe sure seems like a bug, and she's literally from the alpha version, meaning that the buggiest possible Joy can cause bugs in the universe itself. And of course, her being named Joy leaves the door open to all kinds of interpretations beyond that. It's decently deep. I also want to take a moment to underline that my interpretation there about Joy bugging out the universe isn't much of a leap. It's even been done before with a certain, well, I don't want to spoil another movie some people might not have seen, but I'll just say a short and sweet character in the Disney line of movies. I also want to underline that this concept of life as a video game is actually scientific and works well in sci-fi, because even the idea of doing something improbable with just the right timing has literally reprogrammed games from the inside. It's interesting stuff. Add on the fact that if simulation theory is correct about our own universe, then glitches could seriously be a way to control what we understand as reality. Knowing all of that, watching Jobu maneuver inside of her multiverse setting isn't that outlandish to see. Stuff like that is gold to me. I love how this movie works in many ways. Sci-fi is a favorite genre of mine, and this movie reminds me of other things that I've read in the genre, such as the improbability drive in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams.
Ford,
Yes,
I think I'm a sofa.
I know how you feel.
Even the everything bagel is ripped straight out of science into the science fiction. When I went looking for sources, I even found a funny parody article about the everything bagel a few years before this movie came out. Sometimes it's called Donut Universe, by the way, but donut or bagel, it's the same concept. Links are also going to be put in the description, by the way. Those are some of the shining sides of the movie to me when it came to what I could guess and how it got me thinking. Now it's time to explain the parts that weren't shining for me. I feel like the absence of certain things detracts from the movie because they're big enough to be noticeable. Sometimes their absence also seems to contradict the underlying themes of the movie. For instance, caring about parental relationships is normal, and Evelyn's obsessed with what her father thinks of her. In the same vein, her mother-daughter relationship with her own daughter is treasured. Family's important. Given this, why do we never hear anything about Evelyn's own mother? She seems about as relevant as a Disney mom that was killed off before the story, but you can see her briefly in some flashbacks, yet Evelyn never seems to care about her. Alone, that'd be a minor little thing, but problems like that crop up often, such as with her husband. What of his parents? What happened there? Why are they never mentioned when family's clearly a motif and motive? We even see Evelyn's dad crop up in more than one universe, but never once do we see any of Wayman's family members. All we hear is that his brother got divorced, which doesn't exactly fit with the theme of the movie of family and coming together and all that. It's fine as a note, but it's just odd to only hear that about the kindest family member. When the movie is otherwise polished to an extreme degree, then these flaws are more noticeable because of the contrast. I feel like a lot of movies have worse flaws, but they don't stand out as much because the rest of the movie is, well, not stand out in and of its own. It's sort of like if holes were burned into a masterpiece versus a piece of abstract art where you can't even tell if it's upside down. Here it just kind of seemed like parts were unfinished or damaged. The movie also has a moderate pacing issue. The pacing is great once the movie gets going. As I said, it's a fun ride, but the beginning is on the overly slow side. The mother and daughter also initially come off as annoying and whiny. It took me a bit to like Evelyn and Joy. This opening gave me a poor initial impression of the movie. It soon corrected that impression and impressed me, but I can easily understand and imagine why people might give up on the movie before it takes off due to that initial pacing issue, which I think is a problem. I didn't feel invested until about half an hour into it. Some weird things had happened before that point, but they just didn't grip me. The pacing and interactions of the characters also weren't as masterfully handled as the remaining hour and a half or so. I think that made the beginning seem worse because, again, there's this odd contrast in quality. The last issue I had with it is the most subjective one, and I think it's highly subjective to a point that it's not going to apply to a lot of people. I don't know how many people watching this are going to be like me in this way, but while it's excellent that the movie's food for thought in many ways, it also doesn't explore much of its own questions. It just felt like a great roller coaster ride of chaos, which was fun to ride once, but it was whizzing by everything and everywhere all at once. Well, that's fitting, given the title and theme, it's just not my favorite cup of tea. I like it when sci-fi raises many questions questions, and while it doesn't have to answer them all, it spends more time exploring those questions than this movie did. Some people are fine with vastly open-ended narratives and settings that remain unexplained to large degrees. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because if you're like me, it may bother you, and if not, you'll probably like the movie even more than I did. On this point, it just felt like there was a treasure trove, a wealth of material barely skimmed over, and this didn't ruin the movie for me. It just made it not one of my favorites of all time. On a final note, it's worth mentioning that it's rare to see an original IP, a character that's not the typical Hollywood tropes, and one whose background actually matters for the character. Her being Chinese American, middle-aged, lower income, and a woman isn't some corporate executive trying to hit a demographic. Instead, everything about her seems like an important part of who she is as a character. To me, that's unique and refreshing in an era where usually a studio's main goal is only to pander to seek the most eyeballs. Reboots often reimagine characters as having whatever changed for that goal. In contrast, the importance of where Evelyn comes from and who she is makes her seem like a real human being living in a real world. It's clear that whoever wrote Evelyn wrote her focusing on her character and not to please people for the sake of getting dollars. All in all, this means that while I found a lot to like in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it was fun to watch once, and I also highly recommend that others see it too, I think it lacks enough dots to be worth rewatching, which is why it doesn't quite get to the 5 for me. Now that I know how it goes, watching it again just doesn't feel appealing to me because I think a big part of my enjoyment was going along for what felt like a wild, surprising ride. I do think it's one of the best imaginative, clever, and fun movies that I've seen in a long time. It's difficult for me to find movies that I can say that about, especially for one of my favorite genres, sci-fi. So when I say a movie's 4 out of 5 for me, I want to underline that that means I really do have a lot of positive feeling. They tend to be kind of harsher rating-wise than a lot of people do, so I don't want that to get misinterpreted. 4 means really good, which is, I think, really good.